my screen.
Yeah, go ahead and share, Shar. While we're getting all that loaded, as Bina so cordially said, welcome to our community of practice today on our newest indicator, the Urban Tree Canopy. We're joined by Shar, our data scientist, who so graciously created all of this for us, because she's awesome, and that's what awesome people do, is create awesome data sets. So without further ado, I guess we can start getting started if we want to look at the agenda and such today. So today we're going to be obviously introducing the new indicator and showing how it works within GEM. We've got a couple of little use case thing that we're going to look at. And then also we're going to do a little bit of hands-on work with y'all. We'll break into some groups. We'll all get to play around a little bit with the new tool and show how it goes. And I will pass it on over to Mina to explain community of practice.
Hi, y'all. Thank you so much for being here. As Daniel talked about, we're here to explore a little bit more about GEM, which is the Greenlink Equity Maps. You're probably familiar with that because you're here, but you may not be. So Daniel, if I could ask you to put a link in the chat so folks can kind of explore the site a little bit, that would be awesome. But the Greenlink Equity Map is something that we'll go real deep into later today, so I won't get too much into that. But this space that we create every month is for people who are using data and maps to advance climate equity. Greenlink has been doing amazing work getting these data sets to be accessible and usable and helpful for folks who are doing this work. Again, my name is Mina. I work with Upright Consulting Services, and we've been riding along with Greenlink for the past few years as they've crafted these maps and this equity data, and have done really, really amazing work to get this out to cities and to communities to really help build that relationship and advance the climate equity work that folks are working on. So this space that we create every month, we call it the community practice. We do a lot of different things. Sometimes we dive into learning topics. Like today, we're going to get real deep into kind of how to use the new Urban Tree Canopy layer that we have, in addition to the 30 other indicators that are in this map. We also do peer-to-peer consultations where folks can kind of help each other work through issues and challenges that they're working through on the ground, and various other things that really we're trying to connect the folks that are trying to do this good work together. So all of you, and folks are doing this all over the country. So it's really exciting to see all of you, some new names and some folks who've been with us before. So thanks again for being here. And our intention is to connect you all to each other as well as to the resources that we share. And the last thing I'll say is, as you'll see, as you start to join us, hopefully monthly, and as you get into the equity maps, like Greenlink's understanding and our understanding is that data, while it's amazing and wonderful, is not the whole story. And so tools like GEM and tools like our other resources on our site that we'll share are important for really understanding what life looks like on the ground. And so it's not just about data, it's not just about the map, it's also about the other context around it. And so we'll get into that as well. So thank you for giving me that minute. Thanks for everyone for being here. And now we get to hear from Shar, who is the mastermind behind this awesome new data that we're going to look at today.
All right, thanks, Mina, and hi, everyone. It's nice to meet you if I don't know you already. So I'm going to start off today talking a little bit about our new Urban Tree Canopy data set. And we're going to start that with talking a little bit about just what Urban Tree Canopy is in the first place. So when I say Urban Tree Canopy, This is also known as UTC, one of the acronyms that I'll be using the rest of the presentation. And it can be understood as all components of a tree viewed from above. So this might include leaves, stems, or branches, but essentially looking at it from an aerial point of view. And trees are really a critical element of a region's infrastructure. They contribute to environmental quality, public health, water supply. We'll talk a little bit about the impact of them in a second, but trees really do act as nature's air conditioners. They're responsible for producing oxygen, removing carbon dioxide, other pollutants that we have in our air. So just as we move towards more urbanization and our cities start to expand even more than they already have, the role of UTC becomes increasingly important. So before we get into the data set, I want to talk a little bit about urban tree canopy and its relationship with other equity issues and other indicators that we have in the GEM platform, but also other issues that you all and we all kind of know exist today. So starting with urban heat islands, also known as UHI. So trees provide shade and cooled paved surfaces. So they really do help mitigate the urban heat island effect by cooling the areas around them. But they also, with this, reduce energy demand. So therefore, energy burden has a strong relationship with the amount of trees that are found in its area. Trees also help clean particulates from air and soil. So they help to decrease air and water pollution, as well as intercept rainfall. So they tend to provide a good amount of stormwater management. And also they just make neighborhoods more livable. So providing psychological benefits, whether that be through mental health, for example. And another example I like to use here is Atlanta. So Atlanta is in one giant forest, right? So that's known as a signature environmental feature of the city that brings people in and also is close to our hearts here. So moving into the actual data set creation, I want to talk a little bit about what Greenlink kind of did to create this data set and what was our goal behind it. So we really sought out to develop a novel data set to basically understand tree coverage and how it intersects with energy burden and other social equity indicators. And we did this across all cities in the United States. So on this slide, space and space there under ability our communities have.
Shar, I think your sound is breaking up a little bit.
Oh no, can you hear me now?
It's better now. I don't know if it was just me. I hope not.
Okay.
Do you mind saying that last part just again real quick?
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now? Okay, so the goal here is basically to develop a novel data set to understand the intersection between tree canopy coverage and how it intersects with energy burden and other social equity indicators. So that last piece that I was saying here was, I say green space on this slide, and basically urban tree canopy can be used as a proxy for green space. Can you guys still hear me okay?
Yeah, it's great. There was just a moment there. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, just let me know if you can. Okay, so how did we achieve this? So our methodology, I just want to go over this real quick so you guys can really understand how hard we've been working to create this data set and put the same trust into it as we have in it. So we started with satellite imagery. So we gathered satellite imagery from NASA in combination with the National Land Cover Map, also known as NLCD. NLCD data is generated as a part of a lot of federal agencies working together to produce essentially a current and nationally consistent land cover product for all 50 states. So that image that I have on the bottom there of the United States is what the National Land Cover Map looks like. So we essentially took this data and applied advanced geospatial data science techniques through a change factor analysis and also machine learning supervised classification to forecast tree canopy coverage And so the current data set that we have today is 2019. And that leads me to the final data set, which essentially is the percentage of urban tree canopy by census tract, which will be the indicator that we're talking about today. So this is the moment that everybody has been waiting for. So urban tree canopy is now in GEM as of this morning. So it is currently live, very exciting. And this is a screenshot of what it looks like in the platform. We're going to dive into this. I'll give a demo in a couple minutes, and then we'll all kind of be going in breakout rooms and trying this for our own selves in a second. But just to show you guys, this is kind of a screenshot of what it looks like for Atlanta. So the darker areas on this map essentially show areas with less tree canopy cover. And as we move outside of the city, we see the lighter areas, the lighter orange, which signifies areas that have more tree canopy cover. Those are kind of like our areas that are further out from the built environment that we see in our cities. So the description I have listed here is essentially what will be listed in GEM that you all will see. And so yeah, we'll go through that in a second, but before I go through that, I just want to talk about application real quick. So how can what's the importance of this data set? How can we use this in our neighborhoods? So this map that I have here on the right, this is a screenshot of what we will be seeing in GEM, and this is an overlay of urban tree canopy and asthma rates. So this really shows us the intersection between tree canopy or green space and health issues. And I just highlighted asthma as our health issue for this slide. So the areas that have darker blue in this screenshot show areas that have really high asthma rates, but also a really low tree canopy cover. So this is kind of one way we can use this data set to figure out, okay, how do we want to alleviate asthma rates or these health issues? And where do we want to cater programs, planting programs or funding to help that out? So yeah, so tree planting prioritization guidelines. It can also be used to identify populations that lack equal opportunities to experience urban green space, like I just mentioned. So prioritizing those greening goals based on other social or economic variables, such as heat stress or asthma, for example, or energy burden, and really understanding those patterns of systemic environmental justice. It can also help justify budget increases for urban forestry programs, and like I already said, improve health outcomes. So one example I like to use here, and we'll go in depth with this analysis in a second in our breakout rooms, but if you have two communities in a city that have low tree canopy cover, and one is well off financially, maybe that means that we can focus our efforts elsewhere, because it's not always the areas that have the fewest trees that are also the most burdened. It's really understanding the intersection between all these issues. So with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to Daniel to give an example.
Sure. So, and I think we may have some Minneapolis folks in the group, so forgive me if I don't have it 100%, but a place we thought would really benefit from UTC in this new data is Minneapolis and their 2040 plan. And the plan has a goal of 200,000 trees planted by 2040. And it will be getting kickstarted with $1 million of the American Rescue Act funding for 18,000 trees starting next year through 2024. And this is being done in partnership with Green Minneapolis. So all the savings will end up with an estimated savings of 5.8 million in energy costs, 5.9 million in wastewater management saved. So using this information at the city level really will help them, or help any city find what areas, as Shard said, are truly in need most of this sort of these plans. As she had said, not all neighborhoods are the exact same, even if they border each other. And finding those census tracts and those areas are vital to really getting these urban plans, urban tree plans working fully. If we want to go on, we have, we had put the link in the chat, but if you would like, you can. We've created an account that everyone can access today, the equity map, so that we can all sort of take a look together in breakout sessions, the tool, how it's applicable. And so if you want to take a moment to log in, we'll have everyone go into breakout sessions here in a moment and sort of play around with the scenario and get everyone's hands on the system. We want to take a moment. Anyone has any technical issues, just put it in the chat and let us know.
Yeah, I'll give everyone a minute and then I'll start going through the demo.
If you already have your own login to GEM, you can go ahead and use that. Otherwise, this will let you in for this session. All right, I'm gonna, folks can continue to try and get in. I'm gonna break you out into these rooms. I'll stay back here in case you have any questions. Does that sound right? Yeah, Shar, Daniel, good?
Yeah,
Okay.
before you do that, Mina, let me just explain real quick.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, thank you.
All good. All right, everyone. So what we'll be doing is going out into breakout rooms. Like the login we just posted it's really exciting. You guys will all be able to have access to the platform for this session. And we're gonna kind of work through a problem together where we can try to identify, use this new data set of urban tree canopy to try to identify areas within a city to put our tree planting efforts in based on its intersection with energy burden and a couple other indicators. So with that, Mina, breakout rooms.
And if you have
Hey, y'all, welcome back. As much as I try to give you a long countdown, I know sometimes it's a jarring return. So thanks for coming back with us. And take it away, Daniel.
Okay. So in my group, we ended up looking at Albuquerque because we had a couple of folks that were from Albuquerque. And similarly, we had found, we looked at Albuquerque and Raleigh, Raleigh and Atlanta. But, we had sort of found out of, similar to probably other places, there was correlations between high energy burdens and low tree canopies, and also correlations of heat index along with the canopies and such. Be interested to hear how things went with you, Jelly, and your group.
Yeah, so our group got to play around with a couple of different indicators that overlaid with urban tree canopy and just kind of noticing the different trends that we were noticing as well. And so we had St. Louis, because I'm from KC, so I'm representing the Midwest here. And we looked at a couple of different things. One of the things we looked at was racial composition and noticing how a lot of the low tree coverage tends to impact predominantly Black neighborhoods over towards the east side. And if any of you have ever been to East St. Louis as well, and you know the history, this kind of scans with what we would hear from a lot of the community members living there as well. We also saw some overlay with renter occupied units in urban tree canopy. And feel free, anybody from my team, if you'd like to speak out as well. And just starting to notice that, again, things are really pushed over to this east side of the St. Louis. And with this, we also noticed some of the areas you can tell were becoming like more developed over here. So closer to universities or closer to downtown areas where there's still like a strong density of buildings. So we're still seeing lower tree canopy, but yeah, there's a couple of different things that we overlaid as well. We also looked at the equity index. I'm not sure if you guys' team pulled that up, but the equity index allows you to look at multiple different indicators at a time. And so we added multiple indicators and adding urban tree canopy in there and kind of looking at what some of these, where the cluster of inequities coming as well. Mina has her hand raised.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm not familiar with St. Louis, and I too am just learning this layer. Do you mind putting the renter occupied and urban tree canopy back up? So I was curious, and maybe others hopefully are too, when you like hover over one of the items, so it says 100% renter occupied and then 0% urban tree canopy. Can you like interpret that for me? What does that mean? Like 0% urban tree canopy. Does that really mean no trees?
Yeah, this is, I got this, guys. So no, this is a great question. And actually Mark in my group brought up the same question. So let's take a step back and try to kind of figure out what that means, because 0% trees does not mean that there's not a single tree in a census tract, right? But this goes back to our methodology and kind of the root of this analysis in this data set. So I'm going to try to explain this in somewhat simple terms here. So we went through an in-depth satellite imagery analysis for this. My background is in remote sensing and satellite imagery analysis. And we essentially use the satellite imagery to try to figure out tree canopy cover in these census tracts, right? But what that satellite, there's different kinds of satellite imagery. Sort of your hyperspectral imagery, which is down to a 1 centimeter by 1 centimeter pixel size, right? So it's really, really granular. You can really see and understand what's happening on the ground. Whereas when you get into the more data sets that we use for this, we're up to a 30 by 30 meter pixel size resolution. So we're not getting as granular. However, we are analyzing this based on pixel size. So if one tree or one forest covers a 30 by 30 meter resolution, that's 1 pixel out of a million pixels that are in a census tract. So when we say 0% trees, it doesn't mean that there's no trees, that there's no forest. It means relative to the entire area of the census tract, there's very few trees. So as an example, if I have 500 pixels of an image, 530 by 30 meter pixels of an image, that's a lot of forest. That's a good amount of forest, but 500 relative to 1 million pixels, or in this huge swath of land that we call a census tract, our percentage of trees might be 0.0007, right? So it's not 0%, but it just means that this is relative to the entire area. So I'm happy to talk more about that offline if anyone has any questions and really dive into that. But when you see 0%, it doesn't mean that there's no trees. It just means relative to these other census tracts and to the area, the percentage of tree canopy cover is very tiny.
Great, thank you. That's super helpful. Yeah. Are there other questions that folks have, either from their groups or looking at this map or anything?
All right. Well, if we don't, Shar, I believe you had Boston.
Yep, we had Boston. Yeah, so my group actually spent a little bit of time just playing around with the platform. A lot of people, it was their first time using GEM, so it's kind of helping them navigate the platform. So kind of starting from scratch there. But we did find that yeah, so Daniel, I guess we overlaid energy burden and UTC for our group, and starting with energy burden, we realized that the southern part of Boston and like kind of southwest Boston was really predominant in high energy burden areas. So Roebury, I'm not from Boston, so this is kind of a new area for me, but kind of north of the zoo there. I don't, yeah, there you go.
Oh, Roxbury?
Yeah, right there. Roxbury, Roebury. Go ahead, Heidi. Feel free to hop in.
Thanks. I'm looking at my own city, and there are certain sections that are just completely white. So they're not showing up, as a legend color at all. Does that mean there's just no data for those areas?
By white, do you mean that it's not colored at all? Like nothing is popping up on the hover?
Right.
Yeah, that probably means that there's no data for that particular census tract. Are you seeing a lot of those?
Well, in the areas of most concern, well, actually, I take that back. When I hover over, information does come up, but the color is white.
Okay. That's what's your hometown? I'm happy to look at it on my end.
Tacoma, Washington, and South Tacoma in particular,
Okay.
is quite an overburdened community.
Yeah.
Oops.
So, go ahead, Dana.
No. I was just asking them right there. Yeah, what we could do, Heidi, email me and we can look into it and see if we can figure out the data that you're looking for.
Oh, that would be great. And I was asking earlier if there are email contacts that we could have. That would be wonderful.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
message that to you, Heidi. So hopefully you have Daniel's you'll have Daniel's email in the chat there.
Yeah, more than happy to share that. And, as I told my group, if anybody wants sort of a one-on-one demo with this or any of the other, indicators, feel free to email me. We'll try to work something out around y'all's schedule, because I know your time is precious, and I would be more than happy to sit down with you and go more in depth with it in, one-on-one sessions. But yeah, Heidi, feel free, email me, and we'll take a look at it and see if we can figure out what might be missing and what we might can get you.
That would be great. Thanks. I'll follow up with you.
Awesome.
Great. Are there other questions? I know right now, Mark brought something up in the chat. Right now, because this came online today, there's a little bit of a glitch that we're working on where if you're working with two indicators, you'll need to put urban tree canopy second and not first. That should not be an issue soon. We're working on it. But Mark did bring that up. So just keep that in mind today as you're messing with it right now. Any other questions or thoughts that come up that came up in the groups or now as you're looking at this? Does anyone want to take a look at their city real quick?
Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes left. If anybody wants to throw a city at me, I'd be glad to go to it.
Can we go back to Durham?
Yeah.
Of course. Yeah, so it's Durham. Looks like some of y'all's areas that have your higher burdens are over here on your east side. And is there any certain indicators you're wanting to look at within Durham?
You can put up heat index as well as asthma rates.
Yeah. So here's where your heat index looks like. Once again, these census tracts are coming up as your hottest areas. And then with your asthma rates, your highest asthma rates are also sort of heading in the eastern part of the metro. So yeah, definitely would be a place of concern. Looking forward would be over in, I would think, to look over in, this area right here, which would be you can get a little bit closer, sort of the village quality. There's a Quality Inn right over there too.
Is there anything you see here, Kirsten, that like looks expected or unexpected or anything like that?
No, not right off the top.
Okay.
But I want to do my due diligence and play around with a number of filters.
Totally.
Totally, yeah. And as I mentioned, me and you had talked, just shoot me that email and we'll get some time set up between us.
I appreciate that. Actually, I just sent the email because if I don't send it now,
Yeah.
I may forget to send the email, so I have to do it right then and there.
Hey, I'm the same way. I understand completely.
Are there other indicators that folks want to look at? And we're going to wrap up in just a minute.
You said that you can also add in racial demographics, correct?
Yes, yeah. We can add that in there and it'll show us also, along with the canopy, what the racial makeup is of that area. Yeah, of course. All right.
Oh, we have a question from Albert. Go ahead, Albert.
Hi, everyone. I just had a question about considering all the recent increases in prices for like housing and energy and things like that. How do you incorporate that into like your indicators, like for housing burden and energy burden and things like that? Thanks.
Shar, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So, I'll start out with saying that the data that we currently have in GEM is for 2019, and it is from a lot of our data is from the census. So it's based on survey data, ACS data, and IPUMS data. So we do have a slew of different indicators from renter and owner to energy burden. However, in terms of having the most up-to-date information in there, 2019 is the most up-to-date we have. So what we're seeing in 2022 might not necessarily be what's happening in the platform right now, but that's also the most recent data that we have available. So the census data is kind of what we rely on for that piece. And I'll let any of my teammates add to that as well.
I would just say that it's not so much, it's the latest that we have, but it's also because that's the latest that's been released. So there's typically about a 2-year lag on any of the federal survey data to be processed, validated, go through its statistical checks, and then get published. So this is kind of the latest and greatest that really anybody could put together right now. So you could use this to try to make some estimates of where you thought things might be now, but it's really going to be kind of like your best guess based on the combination of like your local knowledge, maybe what you're hearing from community. And what we have here is this historical snapshot back with 2019.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so I think we're coming up pretty close on time. Does anyone have any final questions or anything they would like to find out? Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. Just give me 1 second here. As always, if you would like to contact me or, Jelly, let me pull up really quick. Here are our contacts that you can get in touch with either one of us. If you would like to schedule demos, please feel free to reach out. We would very much like to speak with you one-on-one capacities also. And if you have any questions about where connectivity, anything technical, feel free to also email. We'll be glad to get you some answers. And thank you all for joining us today. I hope you found it as good as we do, as having a really unique and new set that you can't really find anywhere else. So thank you all, and we will see you at the next community practice, which will be in January 26th. So look out for that information coming soon.
All right, thank you. Happy holidays, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Shar, for this awesome data. Take care.